Chapter 7 Expressions. Arriving at Alsatia, Mletsi was sitting in front of a fire. Before Wanyanyekevu could catch his breath, Mletsi said, "For the next 3 days, we will perform the holy jeûne." Mletsi then quickly disappeared. Wanyanyekevu had seen so much and heard so much that day that his mind was racing. He took out his notepad and pen and wrote about all the ideas he had. Talking to the trees and animals, the amazing skycraft, and even Kaniasil, who was so profound, he had to write something to remember what had happened to him. He said aloud, "God, people, who's gonna rescue you from the powers to come? When you've been deceived by the traditions of man. Faith to you is self-confidence, not belief in the Almighty. Caught up in a whirlwind of lies, as your beliefs come and goes, in and out, up and down, like wings of a butterfly. Draining the energy of others, whether they're right or wrong, 'cause you don't have any strength of your own. People, why is it when you go to worship, you believe in whoever is up front? Never educate yourself. No faith, no strength, no knowledge, no understanding of God. So you create your own. Man, life to you has to be hard. Let me tell you something to ease your pain. To you, from me, there's a Trinity. That you might not know of. That you need to see. God's order of divinity. Spelled God. Then he wrote, Inside of me, there yearns a spirit of righteousness. True enough, I've lied, cheated, and stolen, but never killed. But in my heart, there's compassion to do all that is right. I want to do evil, yes. I want to sin. However, my heart seeks to do otherwise. What is the answer to such a problem? When will I ever solve them? Stop. Just stop, I say to myself. Slow down before I'm lowered to the ground. Search my heart. Reach deep, deep inside this corrupt mind. Hopefully, a solution I'll find. Listen to the words I say. Look at the things I do. Touch that innermost man, and he'll give me the plan. Deeper and deeper I went. Realizing that every man is not heaven sent. Realizing that there is a difference. Love, not lust. Infinite, not finite. About eternity, not time. Yes, the spirit and not the flesh. At first I thought it would be hard. You see, then I saw it was no more I, but the Christ that lives inside of me. Wanyanyekevu slowly closed his notebook with tears in his eyes and looked to heaven. Sabaoth, whatever you have for me and my people, I'm willing and able. Wanyanyekevu took out the scroll given to him by Mletsi and started studying his ancestral tree. His eyes became heavy, and he placed all his things in his backpack and drifted off to sleep. Wanyanyekevu found himself in a thick wooden forest and saw the animals playing around him. As the squirrels chased each other, he turned to see them run up a tree. Suddenly he turned and saw that he was amid the desert and saw a rattlesnake slither right by him. He paused and said to himself, "What is this?" A sweet smell in the air awoke him. Wanyanyekevu opened his eyes to see Mletsi standing in front of a clay structure that looked like some kind of igloo. Mletsi stood before it and pointed to the entrance. "It is time," Mletsi said. Wanyanyekevu approached the structure and entered. Sitting with his legs crossed, Wanyanyekevu and Mletsi prayed for an hour afterward. Wanyanyekevu spoke that unknown language for a while, and Mletsi said to him, "Time has come for you to feel joy and peace, but afterward fear and pain, but know all you need to make it through this is your faith in Sabaoth." Wanyanyekevu started to speak but was interrupted by Mletsi. "These 3 days you will fast, and the joy of the Lord shall fill your body with a joy you have never experienced before. But know this, after some rest, be prepared to feel fear and pain. Then you shall go to Tallulah, and for 90 days you will experience much fear and pain. These 3 days shall prepare you for that time," Wanyanyekevu said with confidence. "It is so." After an hour, Wanyanyekevu got lightheaded and thought he saw things as the sweat dripped down his face into his eyes. Closing his eyes, he sang songs that his grandmother sang to him when they performed jeûne. He felt air blowing in his face as the heat from the room dissipated. Knowing they were enclosed in the structure, he quickly opened his eyes. He was in the skies looking down, seeing the beauty of the trees, rivers, and roadways for miles. Fear covered him, for he had never been this high before, and he was floating. He heard the voice of Mletsi. Fear not! He stood there for a while before he tried to move forward. He moved slowly. At first, until he realized he could go faster. He flew for miles and saw nothing but the land's beauty. There were no structures, just nature. For hours he flew. After building up his confidence, he started turning flips and performing different acrobatics. Hours on end until he came across a deep and wide hole in the middle of a pasture. He flew past it, saying, "Ain't no way, I'm going down there," and bolted for some time until he said to himself, "Sabea showed me that for a reason." He flew back. When he got to the entrance, he looked down as it continuously alternated from black to red. He flew downward for a long time and stopped on a section filled with lava and fire, so he landed on the edge. It was hot, and the heat was overbearing, but that didn't faze him. He saw lava everywhere, but it didn't consume him, so he started walking. He heard a noise. Fearlessly, he said, "Who is there?" Rising out of the lava was a creature with the head of a hyena, the body of a snake, and talons of a hawk. The beast stood up. "What in the hell are you doing here?" Wanyanyekavu, afraid, said, "I don't know, but I'm getting the hell out of here," and flew to the top of the entrance. As soon as he got to the top, he woke up. He was still in the structure with Mletsi. The sweat burned his eyes as he opened them. Wiping his face, he stated to Mletsi, "I saw a hideous creature." Mletsi said to Wanyanyekavu, "I was there." Thinking Mletsi would tell him more, Mletsi took a cup of herbs, placed them on the fire. "These things that you will see are for you, and they will help you later down the road. Let us pray." They prayed for an hour, and Wanyanyekavu closed his eyes and saw darkness had covered him once again. The darkness had covered Wanyanyekavu for a long time until he saw a faint light ahead of him. Walking toward the light, he saw men, women, and children walking with him. The closer he got to the light, the more people were around him. The entire area was covered in darkness, and when they finally reached the light, there was a silver ladder going up toward it. The elderly headed up the ladder first, then the women and children, lastly, the men. Wanyanyekavu started helping people up the ladder before he started climbing it. Wanyanyekavu would often take minutes, even hours, before taking one step up the ladder. The elderly was slowing people down, so the children started going on the opposite side of the ladder to pass them. Others did the same as the line began to move faster. Wanyanyekavu was relieved. "Excuse me," he repeated as he smiled back at them. Hours had passed, and the ladder seemed endless. Wanyanyekavu sped up his pace. In doing so, he accidentally stepped on an older man's hand. He heard a scream that lasted for 5 minutes as the man fell from the ladder before hearing a loud thump. Upset, Wanyanyekavu stopped and cried in pain and anguish over what he had done. Suddenly, he heard the people below him screaming as they fell from the ladder. Looking down, he could see something or someone coming toward him at great speed. It was knocking the people off the ladder. Whatever it was coming too fast. No one recognized what it was as it got closer and closer. It began to purposely knock the people off the ladder in a circular motion around the ladder, moving like a tornado. The screams got closer, and many jumped off the ladder out of fear. To anticipate the object's movement, Wanyanyekavu attempted to avoid the thing by going from one side of the ladder to avoid being knocked off himself. When the object got close to him, it stopped in front of him. Wanyanyekavu looked at the creature. A human body which was naked, but without extremities such as the nose and mouth, but had millions of small eyes all over its body, blinking constantly. The demon stopped where it was. It looked into Wanyanyekavu's eyes and growled. Wanyanyekavu was awoken, and there he was, sitting in the structure. Mletsi said to Wanyanyekavu, "It is finished. It's time to finish our jeûne." Wanyanyekavu said, "Why? It has not even been half a day yet." Letzi said to Wanyanyekevu. Oh, but it has. 3 days have passed, and it's about to be a fourth. Your perception of time is not as mine as the Torah mentioned. A day could be 1,000 years, and 1,000 years could be a day. Wanyanyekevu was in a bit of shock, for he just knew without a doubt it was the same day, but because the structure didn't have windows, he did not know when the sun had risen or set. As Wanyanyekevu exited the structure, it disappeared. There in front of him was a meal that suddenly appeared. It was a rabbit slowly roasting on a small fire with mixed vegetables simmering in a pot with a small pot of rice next to it. Wanyanyekevu smiled. Sabaoth is mighty and wonderful. He had mixed feelings throughout the day, but now he felt a strong sense of joy, and it consumed him as he sat down. He just wrote poetry to explain his happiness. Why fast? Why do one need to fast? To loosen the bands of wickedness. What in the hell does that mean? Then the truth came to me. I saw, yes. I now see, and then I knew. Fasting. It breaks down the flesh. Much like venom from a snake, that slowly kills the flesh. That proceeds with death of that flesh. We are to die so the spiritual man can rise. He wrote. Been so long. Been so long since I've seen joy and love. Yes, joy and peace. Been so long since I've seen, or even felt a spark, until recently, when a spark finally appeared. It came over me, it comforted me. Excitement covered me for so long, a cloud of depression vanished. Frustration. Yes, stress and anxiety covered me for some time. Caught up in a storm of confusion, until I saw light. It was just ahead of me, as I reached for it. It pulled me closer into a mood I've longed for. That brought forth a song I entitled, Been So Long. He wrote. Sleep. Sleep is where you meet God, sleep is where you meet eternity, learning the meaning of time. Sleep is how your Creator speaks to you, sleep is what you shall do, until the end of time. Sleep is a necessity, like charging your batteries, to allow you to make it another day. Things to remember for the rest of your life. You got to work, you have to eat, you have to sleep. He wrote. Dream, fantasy, or reality? To be comfortable for the rest of my life. Dream, fantasy, or reality? To be successful. Dream, fantasy, or reality? To enjoy who I am. Dream, fantasy, or reality? To love myself. Dream, fantasy, or reality? To want the best for my family. Dream, fantasy, or reality? To get an education. Dream, fantasy, or reality? To be rich. Dream, fantasy, or reality? For me, all was a fantasy that became dreams now, they are all real, reality. He wrote. Faith. I can't see it, so how can it be? I can't touch it, so is it there? Hearing many say, I don't care. Running everywhere. So many in pain. Mind's going insane, depression is a norm, and hope is just a dream. All of a sudden, frustration kicks in, and life has no meaning. To those who need it, this 5-letter word. There have been a few who knows the meaning of the word, their life hasn't been the same since. You see, this world hates dreamers, that is what they call them, calling them all sorts of names. These dreamers have what they're looking for. This is the reason why they're going insane. The insanity slowly turns to prejudice, then hate. When all they needed was just a little faith. He wrote. Sin and skin. This skin I'm in makes me sin, righteousness, I know not of, how absurd, righteousness is something I never heard of, what is that word? Because this skin only knows sin. Righteousness is sin to the flesh, what a mess, I do things that I should not do, things I should not do, guess what? I do. Now there's a few of you who say they can do without sin. Who are you? An angel? For who has deceived you? A preacher? If so, he or she shall receive their just due. As for you, if you got skin, you got sin. There is sin in skin, one trick to skin, one trick to life. Sin has a weakness in skin, some call it flesh, it can't stop sin, but it can save a soul from hell. if you give in according to the supreme sacrifice. Nothing you do physically, no hard work involved, hoping for something that is invisible is a clue, the only thing that can help me and you. Faith. So easy, but so many make it so hard, but that's the secret, please pass it on. If someone tells you, he ain't got no sin, walk up nicely, being polite, and whisper softly in their ear, say, "Excuse me, my friend, but there's sin in skin." Then finally he wrote, Sabaoth. Knowing the pain, he sent someone to you, who has been through the same. He had no other choice, but to understand. Reason being, he cared for you. Talking to those, who always seems to be depressed. You act as if you are the only one, and that's there's no one else. No job, no career, or got a job, got a career and still depressed. Always staring up into the sphere, looking for help that's near. It seems like a mess, a test. You say, it's no way out. I'm here for you, 'cause I see the grief, the unbelief, the pain, the strain. But hold on, be strong. There's a gift at the end of this thing. Together we can make it, together you can take it. Alone, you might go insane. Just call my name. Sometimes you result in crime, thinking it's the way. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I disagree. Crime isn't always me, but sometimes in jail is where I need you to be. Like playing any kind of game, learn the rules to win. Learn the rules to understand. You are beautiful people that I made. There's someone who doesn't want you to achieve anything. Please remember the pain, so we can become as one. Don't want you to be lost from your Creator, I paid the cost. It's me, Sabaoth.